What's up, everybody? This is awesome to be here. When Pedro asked me, I said yes without even checking the dates. And what's awesome, too, is that my pastor in New York is up next. And then my other pastor is leading worship tonight. So I feel like I'm in church. I'm going to start. He just asked me to come up and tell my story. I'm going to start with a tragedy, really, that happened when I was 4 years old. That'll give some context to kind of where I'm at now. When I was 4, my family had moved into a new house from Philadelphia to the suburbs. And my dad was just a middle-class guy. He was working, an average job. I was out at school. I was playing with my friends. And my mother, this amazing, vibrant woman, is fixing up our new house. Okay, so there's a problem. The house has a gas furnace that's been installed that has cracks in it. And carbon monoxide, unbeknownst to all of us, is leaking through the house, filling it up. And this is in the years before carbon monoxide detectors were even invented. And we were out of the house most of the time. My mom is starting to suffer. And one day she walks across the bedroom and she collapses. And my dad, takes her to the hospital. And after a series of tests, the doctors realize that she has been irreparably poisoned by this carbon monoxide. And she goes from being a vibrant, beautiful journalist and mother to a freak, allergic to the world from this point on. And the carbon monoxide had stopped short of killing her, but it killed her immune system. And she had to wear these charcoal masks. She lived most of her time outside in a lean-to because the house made her sick. And I remember the place we had created for her in the house was covered in tinfoil. It was a bathroom, and she slept on a cot that had been washed in baking soda maybe 20 times. She loved to read, but she couldn't read because the ink made her sick, unless my dad and I baked her books in the oven. So sometimes they would catch on fire, which is a lot of fun as a kid. You hand your mom a flaming book. Other times, they were just charred, and she would wear these cotton gloves so that she wouldn't touch the print. She would put it into a cellophane bag, close it up, and then she could read. My parents had a very deep and authentic Christian faith. Family planning stopped, so I was the only one. And they decided not to sue the gas company. They thought that one day my mom would be healed. They thought they had this word from God that she would be healed, and they shouldn't go down this path of a lawsuit for negligence. So I grew up in the church, and I'm kind of, the perfect Christian kid. I'm playing in the worship band, and, I'm taking care of my mom. I'm cooking her food. I'm, washing her clothes. And then at 18, like so many bad cliches, and maybe some people in this room, I completely rebel. I give my finger to the church, to my family, to God. How dare you make my mom sick? She wasn't healed. You ruined my life. I didn't have as much fun as all the other kids. So I moved to New York City, and I learned that you could rebel in style by becoming a nightclub promoter. So for the next 10 years, I filled up clubs and got people wasted for a living. I worked about 2 days a week, sold $16 cocktails and $500 bottles of champagne. And if you were down there and you looked up to the VIP room, you might see me sitting there with my partner, getting paid $2,000 a month just to be seen in public with that bottle of vodka, and another $2,000 a month to be seen in public drinking Budweiser. You can see kind of what an idiot I am in this photo because I'm holding out my Rolex watch so that the photographer notices that I have a Rolex. Come on. A little later on, it got very dark. 2, 3, 4 in the morning, lots of cocaine, any drug you can imagine, Special K, MDMA. I'm 28 years old, I'm on a beach in South America, and I'm with all of the right people, and my life looks great on the outside, and I am dating a model, and I have a BMW, and I have a grand piano in my apartment, and a Labrador Retriever, and I've arrived, and I'm miserable. And I realized that there would never be enough girls, there'd never be enough money or status. There's a verse in the Bible that says God has put eternity in our hearts. And I was trying to fill eternity with all the wrong things. I'm doing massive amounts of drugs at the time, and I hung over during the days. I start reading this book called The Pursuit of God by A.W. Tozer. Interesting dichotomy to the evening before. And I started reading the New Testament and just rediscovering Jesus and rediscovering a lost faith in a different way as an adult with 10 years of decadence under my belt. And I come back to New York, and I've committed to God that I was going to tithe back one of the 10 years. And I wanted to serve him. I wanted to serve the poor. For 10 years, I hadn't made a charitable gift. I didn't do anything for anyone except myself. So I started applying to humanitarian organizations, thinking this is going to be really easy. And of course, every single one turns me down, including Franklin. What the heck would these organizations like World Vision or Samaritan's Purse do with a nightclub promoter? What was a nightclub promoter? Finally, one organization said, if you pay us $500 a month, we'll let you volunteer with us. It's like, all right. They happened to be operating a huge hospital ship. It was a group called Mercy Ships. And I said, I'll go wherever. And in the fall of 2004, at 28 years old, I embarked on a journey to Liberia, and everything changed. This would be my new home for the next year. 250 square feet with 2 strange roommates and a ton of cockroaches and a 50-year-old converted ship. And when I walked up the gangway, everything changed for me. I literally felt like God met me halfway down and said, I want everything. I want total obedience. I had gotten wasted the night the ship came in. Smoked 3 packs of cigarettes, going out with a bang. And when I walked up the gangway, I never smoked again. I quit drinking, I quit drugs, I never looked at pornography again, I never went in a strip club. And to the chagrin of all of my womanizing friends in New York, I was celibate for the next 5.5 years until wedding night. Blew them away. And that started an incredible journey. So what I was gonna be doing was taking pictures of every single thing that happened on this ship. And before the doctors sailed in, they posted flyers throughout the country saying, if you've got a tumor or a cleft lip, if there's a piece of flesh missing from your face, come and see our doctors and maybe we can help you. And I learned that this would be the toughest thing I would have to do because over 7,000 people came for 1,500 surgery slots. And some of these people had walked 1 month to see our doctors, and they were just too far back in line. First child I photographed, he was first in line. It was 5:30 in the morning. His name was Alfred. And I took one look at him and started sobbing. I lost it. This kid was terrified. He was literally choking to death on his own face. So I run in the corner, and one of the medical officers comes over and says, dude, like, toughen up. You are a photographer. Like, did you not get the memo? We are surgeons. Pull it together and get through the day. And I did, and he invited me into Alfred's surgery a couple days later, and I saw these doctors operate on him for free, and then I got to take Alfred home with a new face a couple weeks later. It was story after story like this. Martha Lean had lived in a dark corner because when she came out, you can see the towel in her hand, people would throw rocks at her. They thought she was cursed because of this tumor. 45 minutes with the doctor, and she got a new face. For the next year, I met incredible people who lived in a country where there was one doctor for 50,000 people. Here we have a doctor for 180 people. When you got sick in Liberia, there was no hope. And then one day, a ship sails in full of doctors who gave up their vacation time to serve, to operate for free. I couldn't go back to New York. I didn't know what was next, so I signed up for another year. And on the second tour, I learned what was making some of these people sick, and it was dirty water. And there was one guy off to the side, a kid from Colorado, who was given a little bit of money to help villages get clean water. And I would drive out with him in the Land Rover, and he would show me the local sources of drinking water. And I remember saying, bro, there's no way you're gonna tell me they drink that. I wouldn't walk in that water. I wouldn't let my dog drink that water. And he said, well, it's true. There's no other water source anywhere nearby. So he would use a little bit of the money left over from surgeries. He would train the locals how to find clean water right beneath their village. Oh, the irony. And then take me back 2 months later, and I could drink the clean water next to the swamp. And while the surgeries had certainly left an impression, this left such a deep impression on me. Here was one guy off to the side, helping hundreds of people by attacking a root cause. I came back to New York. I was 30 now. Most amazing thing had happened in my family. After 28 years of waiting, of praying, my mom had been miraculously healed. And I was able to hug her without making her sick, without having to wash my clothes in Ivory soap 20 times. In other news, my friends were still drinking $16 margaritas in the clubs. And I remember being so angry. I was like, how can you do that? My paradigm had shifted to where 16 bucks fed 4 people for a month in Liberia. And here it was a cocktail at the Soho House without tip. And instead of getting angry or self-righteous, because in fact I had done this for 10 years, I thought maybe I could use my life to bridge the gap between them. And I had told the story of the $16 cocktail for a decade. Maybe I needed a new story. I'd seen a lot of problems, but the one problem that just leapt out was water. And so there the idea for Charity Water was born. When I talk to you guys about water, here's what I learned. I learned that 1 billion people in the world didn't have access to something I'd taken for granted my entire life. 1 in 6 people. I learned that here in America, we used about 150 gallons per day per person. And the 1 billion people struggled to find 5. I grabbed a camera and I started trying to learn more, to find out how we could help. If you'd come with me, you'd meet kids like John Bosco in Rwanda, and you'd see him drinking water like this, the only source he's ever known. You'd see kids in the middle of the school day in Uganda walking around with 20 or 40 pounds of water on their head instead of being in school. You'd see guys my age in Rwanda drinking mud. And they couldn't afford to boil the water because charcoal's expensive, and it's illegal to cut down trees in many of these countries. So this is how they would filter the water. The women would just use their dresses. 80% of disease, said the World Health Organization, is caused by dirty water and a lack of toilets. 80%, imagine that. And it's not the color of the water that kills you, it's the stuff you can't see. And I will never forget this child in Athens, Kenya. She was drinking this water from a river, and she would vomit all over her shirt. And she would drink again, and she would vomit. And she would drink, and she would vomit. And we took the water away from her, of course, and promised to help the area. I wanted to know what was making her sick. So I took this back and gave it to a lab in New York and said, put it under a microscope. They gave me back a picture festering with bacteria. Leeches were something that I'd never heard of associated with water, but community after community I went to would show me leeches. And they'd say the big ones aren't a problem, but sometimes the little ones get through our filtration.
It's a leech, right?
Yeah.
Is that what they call it?
It's hard to believe this the first couple times, but when you hear it 50 or 100 times, you start believing it. The little leeches grow up inside people, and their favorite spot is the back of the neck. And to get them off, the community takes sticks and they pry them off the back of the neck. But this doesn't always kill the leeches, so they crawl back up again. This was the bacteria from that child's water. Saw kids and cows. I'm sure a lot of you here are parents. Unthinkable for any parent to imagine their kids sharing dirty water with a cow, with an animal. Learned that half of the world's schools didn't have clean water or a toilet. Imagine getting an education and there's no water, and you've got to go to a river at 4 or 5 in the morning with your little jerry can to get dirty water to bring to school. And the girls would say to us, the biggest problem for us is toilets. And if you only did one thing here, you would build a toilet first, because we get our period and we stay home 5 days every month. And then we fall behind in our studies. So start with a toilet at our school. Finally, I learned 40 billion hours were wasted fetching water in Africa every year. This adds up to more than the entire global workforce of France. And it's backbreaking work, and it destroys the spines of these girls. You'll see women in their 20s and 30s carrying nothing on their back, and they're hunched over from years of this. So I'm just gonna let it sit here for a minute. It's not comfortable, it's not supposed to feel comfortable. I was angry, I was outraged. I needed to do something about it. And then what I learned was we actually know how to solve this problem. We know how to give clean water to every single person on the planet, and we just weren't doing it. There were solutions. So there was no silver bullet, but sometimes you could dig a well, you could drill a well, you could harvest the rain, you could capture a mountain spring and use gravity to take it down. Sometimes there was arsenic in the water and you could filter it using UV, carbon, biosand filters, pond sand filters. A hand-dug well cost only $5,000. The community contributed the labor and they found clean water underneath them. And we contributed the cement and the PVC and the pipes. Deeper wells cost 10, 15, sometimes 20 grand. You had $1 million rig. But the deeper you went, the more water you got and the more people you could serve. And this is one of the most amazing moments. Being in a village when clean water comes out of the ground for the first time and the scream and the dancing. And then water changes everything. It brings health into these villages. It improves the education of the kids. The moms tell us that they just spend more time with their kids. They get 3 or 4 hours back a day. The UN came out with a stat that said every dollar invested in clean water makes people $12 richer. Water lifts people out of poverty. So what was I gonna do about it? I had this idea and nothing else. I was 30, I was now $30,000 in debt. I had a sordid track record. Who's gonna believe a nightclub promoter trying to start a charity? But I had this vision. I wanted to do 2 things before I died. I wanted to make sure every single person on earth had clean water, and I wanted to reinvent charity. I wanted to get people like me, selfish people like me, back to the table of giving, of generosity, of compassion. I wanted to tell a new story. I had 3 big ideas in the beginning. One was to create a new transparent model. The biggest problem my friends had when they gave to charity was they didn't know how much of their money would go. And I would hear this time and time again, the black hole of charity. How much? Some CEO is making $1 million. Someone's driving a Lexus. I thought, well, let's come up with a new model where we can answer the question the same way every time. And the answer would be 100%. I honestly, people had no idea how to do this, but I walked into a bank account and I opened up 2 bank accounts and said they will never touch each other. The public bank account will never be touched except for direct project costs, and I will somehow figure out how to build an organization, pay staff, an office, and even our flights to the field as we develop this. And we've been able to do that since day one. The second thing was to just show people where the money went and use technology to do this. It was so simple to me. Photos and GPS of every water point transparent on Google Earth so people could see where their money went. And finally, I wanted to build a brand. Nick Kristof had said in the Times that toothpaste was peddled with more sophistication than all the world's causes, and that was so broken to me. And I thought we could fix it. And you didn't need to spend money on building a brand, you just needed really good taste and a couple good people. So day one, I went back to redeem the decade, and I threw a huge party in a nightclub. I gave my friends open bar for an hour, 700 people came, and I charged them $20 at the door. And I took the $15,000 to northern Uganda, built 3 wells, fixed 3 wells, and we sent the photos and the GPS back to every attendee. And they couldn't believe that their $20 had actually mattered. We got into the e-card space and sold $20 e-cards for Valentine's Day, for Easter, for Hanukkah, for Christmas. We got into products that raised awareness, that raised money. We came up with ad campaigns and we said we don't always need to take ourselves so seriously. We can have fun with the brand. But let's get people to think differently about water. Most of the time we're dead serious. We thought we could get donated buses and billboards and ads, and that turned out to be true. I thought we could even make a rig look sexy. We shot rich people in the same situations as the people we were serving around the world. Imagine if it's your son or your daughter going to a private school, carrying water on their back. And we took over galleries and we confronted people with these images, where they shopped, where they ate. Our first PSA brought that idea to video. We went to Saks. We said, you guys sell $5,000 handbags. We have $5,000 wells. Let's totally do something. They shot their Mother's Day and Father's Day catalogs in water, gave up the windows on Fifth Avenue for 7 days. And then they raised $700,000. Macallan says, we want to redeem whiskey. There's a lot of water in our whiskey. So they got the idea to take a 64-year-old bottle of whiskey around the world, and to taste it for 10 centiliters, you had to drop $5,000. We kind of laughed at them until they gave us a $600,000 check. We threw a big gala each year, and we wanted it to be fun and experiential, and 2,000 people come, and we have them carry water on a fashion show catwalk littered with facts about death and disease and dying, just for fun. And then businesses pay every time someone walks. Raised $2.7 million in New York a couple months ago. We got schools involved, and as you guys can imagine, kids did incredibly creative things to raise awareness and money. We got 1 million followers on Twitter and then kept going. We love social media. Our story was so simple. We never had a press agent, but we were in the media over 1,000 times because we constantly pitched. At 2 in the morning, we would be asking a writer to tell our story. We even asked the NASDAQ if we could open up the NASDAQ, and they let us do it twice, taking our story to the financial world. Here was our big idea, and what I'm gonna ask for your help with later. We realized that on our 1-year anniversary, I just shouldn't do another nightclub party. It didn't really scale. And I thought, what if I didn't do a party at all? I didn't ask for gifts, and I just asked people to donate my age in dollars, $32. Everybody I knew pretty much had $32. I wound up raising $59,000 online, and a 7-year-old kid in Austin raised $22,000 with his 7th. And we thought, wow, we're on to something. Everybody in the world could care about clean water, and everyone has a birthday. We built a simple website called My Charity Water where people could track where 100% of their donations went. Joel, who you're gonna hear from tonight, was one of our first, raised $15,000 with his first birthday. Justin Bieber sent out a few tweets, raised $47,000. Jack Dorsey, who created Square, is now over $200,000 with his birthdays. Kristen Bell raised $100,000. Will and Jada Smith raised $100,000. Adam Lambert, who I'd never heard of, raised $320,000. And it wasn't always about the money. Nona gave up her 89th, and she didn't even raise $89. Went beyond birthdays, and people started climbing mountains. A church in Seattle, through a benefit concert with a $16,000 goal, raised over $300,000. They pride themselves as having the only liquor license of any church in Washington. People jumped out of planes, 4 groups walked across America, and a 9-year-old ate rice and beans for a month, did 3 water projects. My Charity Water in Beta has raised over $13 million, and the cool thing is, we built something called Dollars to Projects, where every single dollar with integrity is tied to the project. So if you were Graham and you gave up your birthday and you wanted a whole water project, you could see exactly where your money went. You could see your portfolio, and every dollar is tracked to actual costs. The name of the village, the people that live there. Which of your donations funded that water project? Your own photo gallery where the unique ID is embedded in the plaque, and you can see pictures of the actual well. Your own Google Maps, where you can see it's in northern Ethiopia, and it's actually near a school. And then everyone that donated to your campaign gets an email saying, you gave $39 or $1 or $3,900, see exactly where it went. We've turned 5 since the initial idea, and we've now raised over $60 million from 250,000 generous people around the world. We've turned it into clean water for 2.5 million people in 19 countries through a partner network of 25 people, including Samaritan's Purse, who's our partner in Cambodia. Over 6,000 villages will have clean water. But we've only solved 1/500th of the problem. We're at the very beginning of our journey. 2 million out of 1 billion. So we said, let's set a bigger goal. Let's go for 100 million people in the decade. If we do that, maybe we make our local paper. And we're gonna need to figure out how to raise $2 billion. Unthinkable for any charity. No one has ever grown 65% year over year. Everyone will continue to say this is impossible. And since we came out with a goal, we've been doing it. We grew 86% in 2010. We grew 77% last year. And let me tell you, the trend in giving in this country does not look like this. It looks like this, down 7%, down 6%. We refuse to be average. We refuse to accept the status quo. We are going for it. Last year, 725,000 people got clean water alone. It's almost 2,000 people every day and one person every 43 seconds. And it's time we start rewriting some of these statistics. Instead of statistics of people dying every day, statistics of people getting clean water every single day. I'm gonna end with two final stories about the people and then an invitation. This is what I live for. 10 days from now, I'll be back in Ethiopia, and I get to see transformations time and time again. I took these photos the first time I was in Gazi, and the kind of dark spots are cow crap and cow urine. And the women are bent over trying to get to the eye of an open spring. This is the best they do. It's about a $4,000 solution here that took 3 months. I went back 4 months later. I'm standing in the same spot, and that's the water they're drinking. And that was the mud hole where they were bending over. And this is the healthcare worker who is now using the clean water to teach the village about better hygiene and better sanitation. The last story is of a woman named Helen. And we know what water does. We know that it's health and education, and it gives people time back. Becky, our water program director at the time, was in northern Uganda. She was trying to sneak into Helen's village just to see the water point being used. That is very hard to do in Africa because they always hear you're coming and they block the road. So that's Helen at the front, and Becky, when it quieted down, took her off to the side and said, how is your life different now that you have clean water? What has it meant to you? And Helen says, it's meant so much to me. I used to have 2 jerry cans a day, and every day I would have to make a decision of what to do with not enough water. She had a few kids, so the decision was to drink or cook or clean the house or wash the kids' uniforms, wash her husband. And Helen said, of course, I always came last. I had to provide for my family. So she said this to Becky. She said, now with the extra water in my village, I am bathing so well, and now I'm beautiful. And of course, Helen was beautiful. But I thought, how profound to make someone feel beautiful, to restore a little bit of dignity. If that's not a little piece of the kingdom of God in Helen's village, in her family, I don't know what is. And I would like to invite you guys to join us. Right now, there are people like Helen, communities like Gazi Springs, and they're walking. They don't have enough water to wash. There are schools without water and schools without toilets. It's about 9 o'clock in Africa, and there are kids that are walking right now, finishing their journey. And I'd like to invite you guys to do one thing over the next year. I would like you to give up your next birthday. I do it every year. It basically means you don't throw a party, you don't accept gifts, and you just ask your friends for donations for clean water, where 100% will go and they can see what they've done, what you guys have done together as a community. Basically, it's our birthdays so that other people can have birthdays, so they can keep having birthdays, that more kids can reach the age of 5 and be healthy. So we're doing a huge campaign on March 22nd on World Water Day, and we're gonna try to get as many people to pledge their birthday as possible on one day. Anyone that will listen to it, our story. So I'd like to ask you guys, if you will do this, if you will pledge your next birthday in the next 12 months, will you stand up? Amazing, amazing. Amazing. Thank you guys so much. All right, I want to do one last thing. Take out your phone. I do not have a high-tech way to do this, so I want you just to open up a text or an email to yourself. and just type in the web address and send it to yourself. I think if we all tried to text something anyway, it would jam. Type in this URL, and if you would pledge your birthday with us, we'll send you a reminder on March 22nd. If you would take this message back to your communities, to your churches, to your kids, we'd be so honored. I'll leave that up on the screen for a second. It's just charitywater.org/birthdays. I'll leave you guys with one of my favorite quotes from an old rabbi named Hillel. And he said, "If not us, who? And if not now, when?" And we try to live by that. Thank you guys so much.